1. I work at a hospital as a lab technician. Our hospital site is near the city center and quite old, so there are no real parking lots. And not many parking spaces available. Between students, patients, hospital workers, and people coming and going for different reasons, it's nearly impossible to find a spot after 8 a.m. Since I work in a small team, only 4, and the evening shift is also on call for any emergency, we have one reserved parking spot. There's a sign saying it's only for on-call lab technicians from our department, and there's a chain with a padlock in front of it. It is located between a pillar and another building's wall right next to our lab. There is another team in the lab, and sometimes we let them use a parking spot when we have others available, or when we come using public transportation, but otherwise we don't share it. So the story. A few weeks ago, I started doing the evening shifts, usually from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., but it can last much longer. I was also on call, so I took my car to the lab. I arrived one morning near 9:45, went to the reserved parking spot, but the chain was down and the spot was taken. At first, I thought it was someone from the other team, but I didn't agree to share the spot with anyone, and I didn't recognize the car. So I decided to just park in front of it, horizontally, so my car wouldn't be on the road. That way, the other car was stuck between the wall, the pillar, and my car. At first, I was thinking I would move it as soon as I found the colleague, and he agreed to let me have my spot. But it turns out the car didn't belong to anyone from the lab. One tech had witnessed by the window a lady parking in the spot around 9:40. When he opened the window to tell her not to park there, she just said, "I'm in a hurry, I won't be long," and left walking fast. I checked if there was a phone number left under the windshield that I could call, but nothing. So we decided, you know what, my car is fine where it is, it's not on the road. It leaves enough sidewalk for pedestrians to be safe. And it's only blocking her. I don't have time to go find another parking spot at this hour, which would probably be at the end of the hospital site. Plus I have a sticker on my car saying it can park in some spaces in the hospital for emergencies. And the day went on. I'd almost forgotten about it until 4 p.m. when someone called the secretary. The lab's phone number was on my sticker. It was a lady wondering why there was a car parked in front of her. Turns out she was also a hospital worker from another department, who had arrived late to work and couldn't find a place to park, so she took the chains down and parked there. No idea how she got rid of the padlock, but it was old and weathered, so it might just have been broken. She had just finished I Won't Belong My Ass, and now she wanted to leave but couldn't. First, the secretary, a nice woman but not known for her calm temper, berated by the phone. Then she connected the lady to our phone, where a colleague did pretty much the same. Next, another colleague went out to check in my car. According to said colleague, she looked relieved as she thought he was going to move my car. He just told her it was illegal for her to park there, and now she had to wait for me or we'd call to have her towed. Meanwhile, I was in the middle of a complex procedure that required me to be in a white room, sterilized room with controlled atmosphere, sterilized blouse, so I couldn't just leave what I was doing like that. So she waited, and she called twice more to complain that she needed to leave. And twice she got berated by my colleagues until one of them told her to stop, or they would involve the hospital's security and actually get her towed. In the end, I got out of the white room at 5:30 p.m. My colleagues and I thought it was enough, so I changed myself as slowly as possible, took the time to get everything in order, and let everyone know in the building I was going to be out for 5 minutes, and finally got out. She was visibly pissed because it was almost 5:45 p.m., but the threat to get her car towed might have stuck because she didn't say anything except a passive-aggressive, "Thank you." By the time she could get out, it was almost 5:50, so she waited a little less than 2 hours. Could have been worse since I ended my shift around 7:30 that evening. So far, no one else is parked in the spot except us. 2. 2 years ago, I packed my stuff and moved to California for a new job. This job is in the northern part along the 101. The area is a farming and agricultural hub. It's the country, if you will. Important for later. I really love the area. I live on a dirt road in a heavily wooded area full of redwoods and running water. My neighbor's house sits across the road on a nice piece of land with plenty of space for their 3 goats to roam, forage, and do whatever they want. I also have a decent amount of space for whatever I please. I meet the neighbors, friendly folk it seems, a married couple in their 70s that have lived on this road for a long time. At this point I start planning some stuff that I would like to do for my hobbies. Putting plants on my patio, getting chickens, maybe a garden going. The area is prime for this, so it should be a lot of fun. My property sits along a wooded area and is not fenced in. The neighbors' goats come and graze in the pasture area. That's cool and whatever. No biggie, but as the weeks go on, they start causing issues. These things will eat absolutely anything. The first thing of mine they ate was the temporary license plate off of my vehicle. Consistently getting into my trash I store in a trash can outside, knocking them over and getting into the bags. Now I'm realizing any type of plant I want to put outside will be gone within a day of planting. They also loved shitting on my porch, as well as butting heads with one another on the porch. I'm constantly chasing these things off because I'm now getting annoyed. I bring these issues up with the neighbors, and his point of view is, "This is a country. My animals are free to roam, and if you want them away, then you need to fence your property." Now, this task is a huge undertaking, and damn near impossible due to the layout of the land and the goat's ability to climb and navigate through rocky terrain and wooded areas. We have a disagreement, but it gets left at that. By this point, I've gotten some chickens and turned a large dog kennel into a coop for my girls. I keep their feeder inside it, and the goats are now aware and have been enjoying their fair share of my feed. I leave the coop open so the ladies can have access to the feed while I leave for the day. My chickens are laying eggs, and I'm generous with them, giving the neighbors that have the goats plenty to enjoy. Now the goats know I don't like them and will stay away when I'm around. I've gotten a garden planted, which I've placed a decent barrier around to prevent the goats from getting into. I arrive home one day and the fence is busted down and my garden destroyed. I'm furious, and I've had enough of these goats. I once again confront the neighbor, and we get into a verbal altercation. Now, this is all over a year and a half, plus or minus, time frame, and there are plenty of other details I could include, but it really would drag this out. To make it quick, I dislike this old man now. I've learned he is a greedy asshole and he's going to die a bitter old man. But it's important I keep our relationship somewhat friendly for unspecified reasons. Now, a new neighbor has moved into the house that was adjacent to his. He comes with chickens and a rooster. The old man is frustrated with the rooster. He has issues sleeping already, and now he gets a nice alarm clock at 7 a.m. sharp. Sorry, buddy, but welcome to the country. So this definitely gives me a good chuckle. For the most part, I have come to terms with the goats and make the necessary changes needed to keep things secure. I've ran the goats off enough and thrown enough rocks at the goats that they stay away for the most part. I still can't have a nice porch full of plants, though. Over this time, I have grown a love for my hens and birds in general, but certainly since I'm not around all the time, they need some protection. A rooster of my own would not only provide this, but also add another alarm clock to the old man's morning. A few months ago, as I'm at a tractor supply, I see the most beautiful sight. A barred rock rooster in all his glory. Someone had dumped him there. "Well, big guy, you're coming home with me." Rocco, the rock and roll rooster, is now fully integrated into my flock, and every morning, on the dot, he lets out the most amazing crows, and I get deep satisfaction at the thought of the old man getting woken up by roosters on both sides of his property. But we live in the country, what do you expect? 3. A while ago, I shared a story about I being nickeled. And they're nonsense, so let's go back a bit further, now to another story from my first trucking job, in my first 6 months as a trucker. The company I worked for was infamous because every new guy lasts about 90 days. This story is about that company and what got one of my managers fired, all because of a simple request to be fueled on a short-haul load. This load was dog food coming over from Sparks, Nevada, and dropping at a distribution hub in Sacramento, California. My last load had been dropped a couple of days before, and I had been sitting there waiting because I had requested home time. I lived in San Bernardino County, California at the time, so yeah. Already in a bad mood from that since it killed my vacation days I'd saved up from that time. Lots of stories from this company, but I'll move on since this story is about me getting my payback on the guy. So, I've been sitting for a couple of days. It's late August, so it's been hot, and I've been running my rig AC at night. I finally get my dog food load and notice that it doesn't have a fuel stop. Pickup is in 30s, so I shoot a message over the Qualcomm unit to ask for a fuel stop. Due to this being a short-haul load, less than 200 miles, you will not be assigned fuel for this load. Cool. My gauge is on quarter, but I'm sure they know that, right? I shoot them that info just to be sure, get no response while I'm picking up my load and getting ready to leave. Finally, I call my manager. It's been less than 10 years since then, so apologies if I don't have this conversation perfectly memorized. Hey, boss. You know I'm heading into Cali, right? I need a fuel solution.
You're good, dude. Just get this done and we can get you fuel.
He was, annoyingly as ever, ignoring my concerns. That's just it. I'm in Nevada at the moment. As soon as I get to California, the price will jump. It's only $2.50 over here, but my uncle said it was nearly $5 in Sacramento right now.
You just get rolling. I'll figure something out if it's really bad.
Well, I tried, and I was feeling particularly mad after the fiasco with my home days, so I set off doing some mental math. I was loaded pretty heavy and going over one of the more annoying passes in the US. If you've done Donner, you know. I get up to the top of the pass just fine, still a bit over 1/8 left. 200 gallons worth of tank, so less than 20 gallons at an expected 9 miles to the gallon on the downhill, with Jake's at full. Let's do this. Sure enough, I roll down the mountain with just enough gas to get me to my drop on Sacramento's harbor. Then have down to the yard, just enough gas to get to the 49er truck stop, the only spot my company had for fuel at the time in the area. My engine cuts in and out as I pull into the island. My manager is on for another 5 minutes or so I give him a call. Hey, just got to the truck stop and my rig is running on fumes. Can I get some fuel? He was rushed and annoyed since he wanted to get home, just like I wanted at this point. I still didn't expect what I got.
Yeah, just fill up. You're authorized for 220 gallons, so you can get the reefer too if you have a trailer.
And with that, he hung up. For those who don't know, August 2012 saw prices through most of California going back up to just over $4 a gallon. The 49er, who had somewhat of a monopoly because they were absolutely massive, and the only major brand out there, from what I knew at the time, were charging $6.50 or so per gallon. I had just been given carte blanche for a full tank. I still remember the gallon's price readout. 203.89 gallons, $1,309.55. Yep. $1,300 on a fill-up that normally costs $400 on the extreme high end in the rest of the country. I went to bed, knowing there would be a storm of epic proportions the next day. I was 21, annoyed, and fully willing to roll with whatever was coming because I was spiteful. Sure enough, I got a call from the night manager before the sun even came up.
Arrow, what the fuck is this fuel bill?
Pull the Qualcomm messages and the call log from last night, I replied before hanging up and falling back asleep. When the sun was up, I had a message on my Qualcomm from my manager's manager, along with a new route directly to my home terminal. The manager had been fired, and they wanted to see me in person to figure out just what was going on. I got there, and after a couple of meetings, they gave me a week off and transferred me to relief and recovery. I have some horror stories from that, but those are for another time. For that day, I had just won against the single most annoying boss I'd ever known, and had finally gotten myself a bit of time with my parents and brother, which was good enough for me. 4. My ex and I lived on the main street of a small town. We were next to an older couple, early 60s, who lived above their car restoration business. Their building fronted right on the sidewalk and ran full length and width of their property. There was a garage door in the middle of the front of the building. It was recessed, set back amongst the length of a car, so there was a sort of tunnel and carport. That's where they parked the antique car that was their primary transport. The curb to either side of the garage apron was painted yellow. This was not the first problem we had with them. The wife would give us permission to do something, like double park in the front of their driveway to unload groceries, or park my mom's car in the vacant lot they owned across the street, but not tell her husband she had. He ended up yelling at us about it. Twice he yelled at me right in front of his wife for something she had said was okay, and she stood there and didn't say a word. I had parked our minivan, as was my preference, in the front of the house, just outside the no parking zone, where we got a big snowfall. It was almost a foot, and it was wet and heavy. The husband used a snowblower and cleared their sidewalk and driveway. He blew half of it into a big pile right in front of our van, right up against it. Some even landed on our windshield. There was a car parked a foot behind us, so we had to go through where that pile was, if we wanted to drive anywhere. The pile was over 4 feet tall at its peak, and most of it was about 3 feet, just low enough to see over when he backed out. I did some rough calculations and determined it was nearly a metric shit-ton and a half of snow. I rang their doorbell, hoping to start a dialogue about it. They didn't answer. I didn't see all that snow as a problem. I saw it as an opportunity. It was the raw material that dreams are made of. My stepson and I spent hours working on that pile. We were up half the night, and I'd never seen my stepson put so much effort into anything else before or since. He understood the grandeur of my plan, and he shared my commitment to it. Together, we made something magnificent and awe-inspiring. We built a wall. The hard part was that even with the snow from our sidewalk, there wasn't enough to realize my vision. I needed more. I did the neighbor on the other side of our twin. I added the snow from along the side of our house, carrying each shovelful to the sidewalk for my stepson to add. Then I got smart and started shoveling the snow from our backyard onto a tarp, so I could drag a big pile around with each trip. It started on the curb by the front of the van and completely enclosed the concealed no parking sign. It then went through and dammed the gutter, and went into the street at an angle, ending just over a car width from the curb just before the neighbor's driveway. It was 9.5 feet tall, 11 feet long. It was a foot thick at the curb end and widened to more than 3 feet thick. We used a storage bin to make blocks, and we sprayed each one with water. We used slush as mortar. That thing wasn't coming down without heavy equipment. For weeks afterward, whenever he wanted to leave, his wife had to stand in the street and wave him out even when it was clear. The street sloped up slightly towards their property, so a lake formed on their side of the wall and extended to the far end of their property. It was ankle deep where the gutter was, so she had to walk around it. I found out from another neighbor that they called the cops, but I had checked the local ordinances and it was completely legal. It was entirely within the footprint of the pile that the husband had made. It was just taller. There were no restrictions on height. All the relevant ordinance dictated was that a pile of snow couldn't present a risk or damage to property. And the wall didn't. It was structurally sound. 5. I had been working at this company for about 3 years. I had been consistently growing in my role and eventually was given a project to own, with 1 or 2 other team members if needed. But it was a major project with a quick turnaround. I determined I could do it myself, though it would be tight, and since I was looking for a promotion, I took on the project solo. I was able to deliver the project slightly ahead of schedule and with better quality than expected, which allowed us to make a huge sale. The head of the company gave me an award at an all-hands meeting for the work I did, and my boss let me know I was on track for an end-of-year promotion, with a nice pay raise and more responsibilities. But I was needed in another part of the business, so I was going to have to transfer under a new manager that was notoriously hard to work with. I transferred to this manager, and the first meeting we had to get on the same page, I brought up that I had a 3-week planned vacation in 4 months. I had never taken a vacation, so had 6 weeks saved up and did not want to start losing it. He told me, of course, that would be fine, and we would be able to make it work. About a week later, we have our first meeting with our product team. They had a new large project idea and wanted it to be released in just 3 months. As my team looked over the details, we knew this was a 6 to 8 month project at best, and it would be better to deliver it in smaller increments, so they still had something to show in 3 months. Or we would need to push out the schedule. My boss was adamantly against both. So throughout the next week, he made us have last-minute 3 to 4 hour brainstorming sessions every day. But he would not even tell us until around 3 p.m., forcing all of us to work late every day that week. At the end of the week, there was no way we could figure out how to deliver everything on the shorter time frame. And so my boss asked me to stay behind after the meeting. For another hour, he railed against me, saying I was failing at this project and that he could not see me getting a good annual review in 4 months, and that a promotion wasn't even on the table. This annual review would also include the project I had just received an award for, and is supposed to encompass 12 months of work, but he was basing this off of the first 2 weeks on this new team. At this point, I knew he was ready to use me as a scapegoat for his bad management, and started applying elsewhere. We continued working on the project, and sure enough, at the end of 3 months, we were still far from being able to deliver, and my boss was getting heat from up above. Right around this time, I received an offer from another company that would be the promotion I wanted and an even larger pay increase. I accepted the offer and negotiated my start date to be after my vacation, now 3 weeks away. That same day, my boss calls me into his office and tells me, "We need to talk about this vacation." I reminded him that we had talked about it months before and that everything is booked, flights, hotels, etc. He would not let up and told me there was no way I could take 3 weeks off and how behind schedule we are. He told me I could go on my trip, but I could not take vacation and would be expected to be online during our business hours throughout the trip, 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. local time in my vacation spot. Cue malicious compliance. Every morning while on vacation, I would log on at 4 a.m., check emails, answer questions on our internal chat, and do the minimum work expected, logging off as soon as it hit 1 p.m., all without burning any vacation. With 1 week left on vacation, I requested a conference call with my boss to give him my 2 weeks' notice. He was shocked and tried everything to get me to stay and finish out the project, including bringing back up a possible promotion. I told him I had already accepted a job with the start date upcoming. I worked my last 2 weeks before moving on to my new job. Because my boss required me to not take vacation, the company had to pay me out all my accrued vacation once I left. A little less than 7 weeks at this point, including the 3 weeks I had originally planned to take. Now short-staffed, I heard from other co-workers that the project missed 2 more adjusted deadlines. And eventually the manager was demoted before being let go from the company. About 6 months later, the head of the first company asked me to lunch to offer me a role, taking over my former boss's position. I negotiated an even higher pay increase, as well as company equity, and ended up going back there for 3 more years. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge's Ice Cream, episode 236. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please press the like button before you go. Okay, let's see. Let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is another one from Shigar. You get to build a pet. What form would it take? Dog, cat, bird, whatever. And what personality would it have? And what weird trait would you give it? Now, I'm not a big pet person, but if I was going to build one, I would want a dog, right? That could talk in a very sarcastic voice, and it farted rainbows. You may have different, more sensible ideas, so please do let me know what yours are in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.